Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another video. Today's topic is, as my headline suggests, my title suggests, probably one of my more controversial videos and probably one of my most controversial opinions, though that shouldn't surprise you because you guys know that I have strong convictions. So I'm going to talk about the Girl Spot owner. The Girl Spot is a gym in the UK that was created by, I believe her name is Natalie B. Fitness on TikTok, and she created a women's only gym in the UK after she was essayed when she was younger. And she made this gym so that women could have a place to go where they weren't harassed and where they could feel comfortable just working out. And she intends it to be a place where for women who love like lifting, not like these cutesy sort of lightweight sort of places, but really a gym, like a normal gym that is for women. And so recently, she proclaimed that she would only have biological women in her gym, and that is who she intends her business to be for and to service. And of course, she received massive backlash online, and I'm going to talk about that. But before I do that, I want to share some information with you about myself and where I stand with this. If you want to unfollow me and unsubscribe after this, please do so. I think I have a very common sense perspective on these things. So first of all, many of you guys know I was a teacher for 12 years. So I literally watched this transition, no pun intended, from boys line up over here, girls line up over here, calling people guys and gals, to people, friends, they, them. I've literally watched this happen in the American school system. I was also an athletic director. I remember the very first time a parent came to me and he was coaching our 6th grade basketball team, and he said, "Miss G, there was a boy on their team, on the other team, and he was just running all over the court and the girls couldn't stop him." And my heart sunk. And I realized I had to be very careful with my words right now. And I'll tell you what I wanted to say to him. What I wanted to say to him was like, this is completely unfair and unethical. And what I said to him was, I'm going to look into what we can do about this if this is even legal. And this was right around the time where we were starting to transition people, where children started to be transitioned at very young ages into different genders and wanting to participate in sports with, boys and girls. Another instance, I had an athlete who was wanted to be identify as a female on a cheer team, but then wanted to play men's volleyball. And the difficult conversation we had to have there was, which one are you? You cannot be both. You cannot oscillate back and forth based on which athletic event that you want to engage in. I have worked at all girls schools. I've worked at mixed gender schools. And I've also coached women, young girls. I shouldn't call them women. I've coached women because now my kids who are 18 are now women, technically, my athletes. I've coached young girls, lots of them. You guys know my business is actually coaching young athletes. They just happen to be female because I'm a female. Like, I hate to break it to y'all, but most of the time men don't want to be coached by women. Whatever, it's young men don't. It's fine. Whatever. I have male athletes, but the majority of the athletes that I work with are female. For a variety of reasons. Number one, like, it's good to have a role model. It's sometimes women can connect better with young girls if they're healthy. They know how to connect with young girls and all that. I have also been a track coach for 7 years. And recently, we have had to have some heartbreaking conversations with girls on our teams about the fact that biological men have advanced to section finals and county finals ahead of them. And it doesn't matter that they are biological girls or biological men. So I've had a lot of, controversy. Just I've engaged with this topic more than I've ever wanted to. The studies are very, very clear and obvious. Sorry, let me turn off my The studies are very, very clear and obvious about the differences between biological males and biological females. That's not something that we need to really even argue with. And just on an experiential level, women are groomed differently. I don't like to use that word, but that's exactly, or raised, nurtured differently in society than men. Women are treated with a different level of respect and disrespect than men. And yeah, so whether you transition or not, a lot of times people who are biological males have been raised very differently than biological females, and it tends to come out in certain areas, and it tends to sort of muddy the waters. So the other thing I want to say is I can both wholeheartedly say that I think there should be biological women only spaces, including in sports, and that I don't hate trans people. I think those two things should be able to exist at the same time. Now, we have become a stupid people. We think that you have to agree with every single thing that everyone does or you hate them. And I think that's simply not true. The other day, I had a conversation with an athlete that I will never have with a trans woman, and that was, Coach Joe, what week of my cycle should I be eating more red meat? Because I can't get through this workout unless I have enough iron in my blood. Not a conversation you're ever going to have with a biological male. Hate to break it to you. Coach Joe, what should I do the week of my cycle in terms of my training? Not a conversation you're ever going to have with a biological male. You're just not going to do it. So to pretend like they're the same is foolish. And I can say all of that and still not hate trans people. That is actually possible. And as someone who is in the world of athletics and in the world of and track and field's a very unique sport because it is purely physical. Like there's not a lot of, unless you're hurdling, there's not a lot of skill. Like whoever is the strongest and has the most fast twitch muscles is likely going to win. In general, men have more, biological males have more fast twitches than females. So with this sport particularly, you're going to see some massive differences. So anyway, all of that to say, I believe and I think that we should move back into society in a place where women, young biological women, are allowed to have their own spaces because our experience is very different. Now, I said all that. That's my big disclaimer. I don't care if you think I'm crazy. I work with young girls every single day. It is nothing like working with young men. There is a clear difference between the two. And we don't have to pretend like there's not a difference. And just because you acknowledge that difference doesn't mean that you hate somebody. That's ridiculous. That's stupid. Like we've become a stupid people. We have become a non-critical thinking people. Okay, so let's get to this gym owner. Let me share this page with you guys. Lord have mercy. Where is I should have this pulled up, you guys. I am not on my game today. Okay, let me share this piece with you guys. Share screen. Window. There it is. Can y'all see that? Perfect. Okay. So we're just I want you guys to read this first and then we'll get to it. Okay. Influencers U-turn decision to set up inclusive gym sparks massive backlash online. So this is the influencer Natalie B Fitness, a fitness influencer and the CEO of a women's only gym. The Girl Spot has sparked backlash on social media after announcing that her gym would not be open to trans women. So I want to share with you her video on the Girl Spot. And let me just make sure that this is actually coming up for y'all and that y'all can hear this. Okay. Okay. Oh my God. Okay. Oh my God. Okay, that video doesn't sound too good, but okay. Hopefully it's okay for you guys. Sorry for the language. Okay, and then there was one more video. So this is in London. And there was one more video that I wanted you to see here. Okay, so as you can see, this gym is meant to be for the girlies. It's not meant to be like a male gym that only girls can go to. And she says in this video, ideally, men are so repulsed by the fact that it's pink and girly popping hearts and clouds and that they don't want to come because that is the literal point. Now, do I like pink? Yes, my nails are pink, but I'm not into like, super pink everything, but I understand exactly what she is trying to do, especially based on her experience. I can totally understand it. So let's get back to the article. Okay. So here's what happened. Let me give you guys a little backstory, but the article will go through it as well. Natalie, originally said, okay, I'll open it up to trans women. I'll open up this gym to trans women. Fine. She thought more about it and she was like, no, I don't want to do that. So people are upset that she changed her mind, which actually she's allowed to do. And number two, I've already discussed the fact that women should have women's only spaces. There is a marked difference between biological women and women who are trans. There is a difference. To pretend like there's not is foolish. Now she's going to go into why she made this decision, and I'm going to share my thoughts about it. Okay, Natalie Barnett began working on a gym aimed only at women in 2021. It's due to open in spring 2025 after 4 years of fundraising and contributions from followers and leisure wear brand Gymshark via her GoFundMe page, as well as her own investment. Now, Barnett has changed tack and announced that the gym will only be open to biological women, meaning that trans women will not be allowed to become members of the gym. Okay, number one, I'm curious as to how she's going to actually delineate this. Is it going to be simply based on the fact that I can clock you? Is it going to be simply based on the fact that if there's women in the gym and they see that you don't have the pieces or that you don't have the members, so to speak, that they're going to be able to report you? Like, I'm very curious as to how she's going to actually enforce this, because it's very difficult to enforce the fact that you don't want a trans person in your gym. It's very difficult to enforce unless you're actually checking their parts, because a lot of people, their driver's licenses, their physical appearance says that they are trans. So it's going to be difficult. Posting a video on her ex account, Barnett addressed the resurfaced tweet from 2021. Respectfully, if you have a problem with trans women attending my gym, then you can find another gym to train at. I've discussed this several times before. Trans women are women and also a minority that need to be protected. Please keep your transphobia away. So the problem is that she fell into the trap of forgetting that there is a difference between women who are born biological women and women who are trans. Unfortunately, so 2021 was a hotbed time for people emotionally, politically, racially. People were feeling like they needed to have a stance that was acceptable to the world. After 4 years and coming back to our senses, people realized, you know what? It doesn't make me homophobic to say that trans women, are not biological women. Actually, it's just science. It's actually just the truth. The truth is that when you are born with certain chromosomes, your body develops differently. That's just a fact. Now, this article this article is also very biased. However, 4 years into her journey, she has done a 180 and changed her stance on trans inclusivity. In a video that subsequently went viral on X, she said, "The Girl Spot Gym exists as a safe place for women because women are facing sexual assault and sexual violence outside of gyms. The meaning of the Girl Spot Gym is now entirely different." Barnett explained that though her facility would include regular gym equipment, she would also include a focus on self-defense classes, Muay Thai, boxing classes, as well as workshops and activations around PCOS and training on your menstrual cycle, all of which occur to biological women. This right here is why she wants it to be biological women, because this is meant for issues that biological women face. Now, of course, people can argue not all biological women have a uterus, not all biological women have ovaries. We are talking about 0.2% of the population. 98% of the population of women have ovaries, have a cycle, or have had a cycle, right? Have had one, maybe they're in menopause, and their upbringing is that of a biological woman. I don't know that there's anything wrong with this. Aside from the legalese that she's going to have to jump through hoops for, I don't know what the wording is in the UK. I don't really see a problem with that. The majority of the women who are seeking my women's only gym are coming here because they have faced some level of gym intimidation or sexual violence and assault that has been perpetrated by men. As the owner of the gym, it is important to be very clear on how my women's only gym will be operating. It will be operating as a single sex space for biological women. Following her video, which received nearly 45 million views, many are now criticizing Barnett and her gym for its trans exclusionary policy and asking for refunds for their previous donations, as they were under the mistaken impression that the gym would be a trans exclusive space. I have questions. Several people have questioned whether it would be even legal under the 2010 Equality Act, which protects against discrimination based on gender identity, for Barnett to exclude trans women. And this was my question. My question is, how is she going to do this? I actually don't disagree with the fact that women need women's only spaces. But if the laws in your country say that you cannot exclude biological men from your gym, then you cannot exclude biological men from your gym. Others have pointed out that the policy is unenforceable and discussed that the possibility that this policy might be used to police women who have conditions like PCOS, which can cause excess facial hair, or do not present as stereotypically cisgender women. I'm sorry, but I don't know any women with PCOS who look like men. This is silly. This right here is silly. Stop it. But the point remains, how are you going to enforce that only biological women are allowed to be in your gym? Are you going to card them? And unfortunately, this critic is correct. Apart from the very disappointing transphobia, starting a women's only gym excluding trans women is a recipe for disaster. I don't believe that. What do the logistics actually look like? Checking private parts at the door when muscular cis women who don't look woman enough want to come. Most muscular women who are born women do not look like men. And if they are on steroids, I can tell you that they still do not look like men. They just look like women who are on steroids. Hi, I was in the bodybuilding industry for many, many years. Many have suggested that they will no longer be participating or supporting Barnett and her gym, citing that they would now feel unsafe as cisgender women in a venue that is trans exclusionary. That is so silly. How are you going to say that you feel more safe with biological men in your gym just because they are dressed as what? Like, that's so crazy to me. And sometimes I think that this happens with black people too, and this is not comparing race to gender, because y'all know I do not do that. But sometimes people think they're being allies, and it's like you're just spewing nonsense. You do not feel safer because a place is not trans exclusionary. Are you kidding me? That's a straight up lie. Like, explain to me how you feel more safe that a trans woman is allowed in your gym. One of the top comments under Barnard's viral video simply states, okay, well, you can take my name off the waiting list then. Okay, so here's what I want to do. I want to read her response now to all of this. So let me stop sharing for a second and give you guys her response. So let me get this back to you guys. It's so tough with TikTok because I think you have. Can I pause this? How does this work? Okay, I'm gonna try and get this. How do I? You guys are gonna have to help me out with this. Okay, let me see if I can get this to pause. Let me see if I can share this again. Okay, so share screen. Let's read her response. So basically, people are asking for their money back, right? Because they're like, how could you have a gym that's not, inclusive of trans women? How can you say it's a women's only gym? We want our money back. We don't want to support you. Like, women voting against their own interests is like so wild to me. Like, I don't understand. Like, never mind. Like, it is wild to me that women think that having a biological woman space only is a bad thing. But I think a lot of women hate themselves. I really, really do. And they don't like women. I'd like to bring clarity regarding donations to my women's only gym, The Girl Spot, from a GoFundMe campaign that started in 2021. From 2021, when I spoke publicly about being trans inclusive, until March 9th, 2025, there have been 89 donations from the public, with donations averaging $13. People mad over $13. The total donation amount from the public outside of family and friends was £1,190. £1,190. Let me see how much that is in dollars. Euros. Sorry, I should say euros. That's euros. I don't know why I said pounds. That's weird. Is that because that's what used to be? Is that because that they used to be euros? Whatever. $1,200 and $1,200. Give me my donation back. Okay, you're mad about $20? Babe, here. Have it. The truth is, I contributed 50,000 euros of my own money to make the Girl Spot a reality, and donations didn't come from one singular community. I recognize that some donors feel differently given the recent updates about how TGS will be operating, and I want to respect that choice. If you have donated to the Girl Spot GoFundMe and would like a refund, please email support at thegirlspot.co.uk with a screenshot of your GoFundMe confirmation email. After verifying your donation, you will see blah, 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 blah. I have always been transparent about fundraising for the Girl Spot, and I genuinely want everyone to feel supported. I know this conversation has been difficult for some, and I hope we can all continue advocating for spaces where people feel safe and respected. I want to show you guys my favorite comment. Oh, where is it? Do they move it? Hold on. Okay, so someone, I think the comment's gone. Someone said, this is going to be so good for Muslim girlies and ladies. And in the UK, there is a large population of Muslims. And those girls may feel far more comfortable in a girls only gym than a place where biological males exist, because in a lot of religions biological males are still biological males, so there's still stipulations and confinements around where you can work out and who you can be around based on your religion, and they don't care if you present as a woman, you are still a biological male. Now, let's read some of these comments because I was actually really impressed and shocked and with some of the comments from these women. Why are people putting biological men's comfort over biological women's safety? And I think that's a good question. And I can say that and not hate trans people. What is wrong with us that we don't want women to feel comfortable? There are some women who are going to feel more comfortable in a place where there are just women. And how do I want to say this? There are incidences where people who identify as women revert back to male psychology and hate women. And I can see why some women are not comfortable being in a gym with biological males. The gym that I used to go to, you guys, recently started accepting biological males, like trans women, into their locker rooms. And I can tell you that it's been an interesting experience, like, and psychologically watching how women in the locker room navigate that. Everyone's afraid to say something, but everyone's sort of like tiptoeing around these biological males, these trans women, and just kind of, oh, let me change this way. Let me go into the bathroom to change my clothes now. There is this feeling of, oh, I can't fully be myself. And I think people are afraid to say that. And I'm saying this as someone I'm in a gym. Like, I don't go there hardly anymore because now my complex has a gym. But I'm saying this as I'm watching this happen. I'm watching women sort of shift the way that they get dressed and shift the way that they turn. And, oh, let me grab my towel and just go in here. Let me get dressed in my stall. They're kind of looking around like, and everyone is afraid to say, hey, this makes me a little uncomfortable. Everyone's afraid to say, this ain't right. People are afraid to say that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And I think that we're going to get to a point in society where we're going to have to get honest because um and now I'm just going to talk like I'm going to talk off the cuff, right? This is not about her anymore. Women fought for so long to have their own stuff. Like we fought to have our own marathons, right? Because you guys remember the first woman who ran a marathon had to run with men. Women fought for their own leagues. Women fought for their own um, rights. And Black women particularly are in this very strange place because we weren't really seen as women. Like we have this reputation of sort of just being animalistic. And so owning womanhood as a Black woman is also something that I don't need to be stripped, something I don't need for it to be stripped away from me. Meaning, I don't need for us to pretend as a society that it doesn't matter or that there's no difference. There is. And what scares me about this is the idea that there's no difference between men and women. And there is. There is a difference between men and women. There's a difference between girls and boys. There is a difference. Those differences don't have to be bad, but there is a difference. And women should be treated with that different level of respect in a good way. And if we are going to just pretend like nothing's, then everybody's fair game. And I know that sounds like a long shot. I know that sounds like a long shot. But when we stop putting people in the proper buckets, yes, there is a bucket for female and there's a bucket for males. There is. We start blurring the lines of a lot of things. And you strip women really of their accomplishments and of their success. And I'll bring it back to athletics because um that's where my expertise is. When I watch a young girl stuff her face, y'all, so she can put on muscle because women don't have testosterone receptors like that, like biological men do, and push through a difficult training cycle on her menstrual cycle and push herself to the brink with training and all of that, only to be upended by a biological male. There's a problem. I have a problem with that. I have a problem with that. It is now coming out. Let me show you guys this. Let me stop sharing my screen. Let me stop sharing my screen. I want to show you guys this video about Leah Thomas. You guys know the athlete Leah Thomas, who was swimming as a biological male and switched to female and then won all these championships and stripped Riley Gaines of her title. I want you guys to watch this video with me for a little bit, okay? And then, hold on. And then I'll get out of here. And I fear that there's this push to try to eliminate the differences between men and women, and it's not helpful. It's very weird because it's like we fought all this time. Number one, women didn't exist, right? Like they were just like not important. And then we got like these separate but equal sort of boxes. And now it's like, no, put them all together. But eventually what happens is the men rise back to the top and the women are at the bottom, especially when it comes to athletics. I mean, let's just be honest. Let's just be honest, right? Like biological males have an advantage. Okay, so let me share this screen with you guys. And I don't care what you guys say. If you hate women, I think if you're someone who thinks this is okay, you hate women. Because I sit here and deal with girls every single day. I deal with girls every single day. And I watch boys every single day on the track. Our slowest boys are better than our fastest girls. A lot of them. Okay. Let me share this with you guys.
Thomas before he joined the women's swim team at UPenn and started competing sort of alongside with you?
Yes. So his name was Will back in the day, and he was a member of the men's team. He was a grade older than me, actually. So from the moment I showed up on campus at 18 years old, I knew there was a member of the men's team named Will Thomas. And he was Will all through my freshman year. And then my sophomore year, he informed us that he was transitioning to the women's team and now wanted to be referred to with she, her pronouns.
So Will was on the men's team and then bounced over to the male team. Now, in my mind, and I know people they can change anytime in life, but I think, again, the NCAA has since changed their rules. And actually I appreciate the track and field governing body because they are really clamped down on this. They said you have to be on a certain amount of hormones for a certain amount of time, or you need to compete in the biological sex that you were born. NCAA has sort of meshed this around, but he started as a male on the male swim team and then switched.
And in that period, he hadn't actually changed his name yet. So he wanted to be she, her, but his name was still William. And then it was the year after he announced that his name was now Leah. So I knew him the entire time. I knew him for a year as a man. I knew him for a year in the middle during his transition, whatever that might even mean. And then obviously I got to know him as my teammate, Leah, my senior year. At this point, it was, it had been 3 years since I'd first been introduced to him.
Wow. So how did William swim on the women's team, or on the men's team rather? Was he a good swimmer, a bad swimmer, an okay swimmer? What was his...
This is a great question. And I actually don't think they get to it at the end of the interview, but I would like to know his times on the men's team versus his times on the women's team, because I'm curious if there was actually a marked decline based on some of the, because I think he was on hormones. So I want to know if there was a decline, because I'd like to know what the difference is. I like looking at graphs and looking at numbers and going, okay, so he was swimming this. And then, as he took estrogen or whatever, it came down to this. I'd like to know the difference, but she's going to tell you how he was swimming on the men's team.
His record like?
Yes. So something to keep in mind is Ivy League swimming is not known for producing Olympians and NCAA champions. Of course, it does happen occasionally. There's always an exception to the rule. But that being said, for the most part, we're not producing NCAA champions. That is mostly the SEC schools. That's, Stanford, those big sports schools. The Ivy League is not known for any of this athletics whatsoever. So I just want to make that clear. So within the Ivy League, Thomas was actually a good male swimmer. He placed second in Ivies in his events, but he never qualified for the NCAA championship.
Note this. He never qualified for the NCAA championships, but he was second in the conference. So typically, if you guys are not sports people, there's a conference. So in college sports, I did run track in college, you have your conference and you have to place high enough in your conference to make NCAAs, which is like the national meet. So he was good enough in the conference, but you're a big fish in a small pond in Ivy Leagues as it relates to swimming. And so you typically have to hit a target time in order to make NCAAs. That's how it is, at least for track. You have to make a time. So even if you do place well, if you do not hit that marked time, then you won't get to go to NCAAs. So he was decent, but never made NCAAs. Let me explain to y'all that he made NCAAs as a woman.
That is, again, the highest level competition in college swimming. It's an honor to qualify for the meet. It's very hard. Only top 35 roughly in each event get to go, of hundreds and thousands of college swimmers. And so he never qualified for the NCAA championship as a man. To put that into perspective, when he switches over to the women's team, he breaks every record in every event that he swims on our team. He went on to break Ivy League records.
Exactly. Breaks tons and tons of records. And my question is, I'm going to go find this because I need to, I won't do it here, but I need to know. I need to know the differences because I love seconds and meters and all that because I always think of swimming as track in the water. And I need to know, the difference between what he was swimming when he was not on transition meds, or if he even was, like if he wasn't on estrogen and progesterone, like if he was on something, I want to know what the difference is. But what this tells you is, let's just say he was on something and let's just say his time did decline. The difference was so much that he was breaking records. The difference in his performance as a male. And mind you, he has grown and developed and matured as a male. There is a difference between someone who has grown and developed as a male versus someone who has been put on puberty blockers. There is a difference. But this man literally is breaking records the minute he switches over. And he wasn't a terrible swimmer, like for men.
He went on to win best women's swimmer in the Ivy League at the end of the season. And also he won an event at the NCAA championship. So he went from never having qualified for the meet at all on the men's side to winning an event outright. That is a huge gap. That's a very big difference to, again, go from having not qualified for the meet to winning an event is unheard of. And so that, I think, really shows the perspective of, yes, he was okay comparatively in the Ivy League, but he was really just became the best of the best. The athletes that he beat at the NCAA championship and the event that he won were Olympic medalists. So
craziness. And I think what this goes to show is that a lot of people, and this is why I'm really proud of Natalie B Fitness for not backing down. It is more, the Ivy League's got so much praise for doing this with very little regard for how devastating this was for the women. Very little regard for how devastating it must be for you to be fighting knowing that you have a good chance. Okay, some of these races are won by milliseconds. You have a good chance of winning a title. And then a man comes in and you're like, boom, I'm automatically third place. Because let's just say the top three are within a second or a half a second. You have a good start, you have a good flip turn, you're in that thing. You're in that thing. It is a very real possibility that you could win. And then they throw a man in there, boom, your shot's gone. Very little regard for women at all. This is not about women. This is actually about the hatred of women. And I'm fully convinced that this is about the hatred of women. Because imagine being so close to your dream. You're a gold medalist and you're like, okay, you know what? This girl beat me last year, but I have a gold medal, but I really want my NCAA title. Gone because of a man. Don't tell me that this is about hating trans women. No, this is about loving women and appreciating women and supporting women. And I can say all of this and not hate trans people. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? I can say all of that and not hate trans people. No, it's hard to believe it.
Second, third, and fourth place have medals from the Olympics, and he beat them. So,
and
I don't know what else.
Was he like smashing school records on the women's team too?
He broke the record in every single event that he swam for our team.
Every single event, and
Every
he just
event.
took those accolades away from women on that winter.
Yeah, and he also won Ivy League Swimmer of the Meet. So at our conference championship, Ivy League championship, right, the woman who scores the most points gets an award. And he was the female athlete that was chosen for that, although he's not even female. So, wow. I mean, again, and to say the honor of being a high point swimmer of the meet, it's a great honor. And again, that was robbed from another Ivy League athlete.
That's crazy. Can you tell me the story of sort of, I guess, the day or week or the sort of culmination of events that led up to you finding out that Leah Thomas, formerly this person that you knew as William, is now joining your swim team as a woman? Like what it was like with your coach?
This is going to be really, like, I've watched this before, you guys, and I'm going to respond to this and I'm going to get off of here. I'm going to respond to her talking about that transition, like how the team was informed and how they were spoken to. What happens in this locker room is exactly what is happening online with Natalie B Fitness. So when you listen to her speak, think about these people being in her comment sections.
Coach and your
Yes.
team and all of that.
It was crazy. So, I mean, I joined the University of Pennsylvania swim team in 2018, my freshman year of college. And my first year, there was no men swimming on our team. There was no any of this stuff. But we show up for sophomore year. It's September. Our season hadn't begun yet. We're in preseason. And our coach said we had a mandatory team meeting. And interestingly, we're a combined program, meaning we have the same head coach for the men and the women. So normally we do a lot of things with the men's team. And this one team meeting, he said the men are going to go first and then you guys are going to go after. And I remember thinking that was so bizarre because there's almost never anything the men's team needs to hear. And we also need to hear, but we need to be separate. So the men go and do their meeting, and we're waiting for this meeting to start. Finally, the men leave. They don't say a single word to us. They go to their locker room. They start getting ready for practice. And we go into the team room where this meeting was. And I noticed this guy, Will Thomas, was waiting back. And I remember thinking, oh, maybe he has a question for the coach. Like, why would he still be here? This is supposed to be a women's team meeting. And our coach just looks at all of us and starts the meeting and just says, Will, this is your meeting. And then before he even spoke, I said, what could a member of the men's team possibly have to tell us women? What could possibly be happening right now? And
the shock, right? The shock and awe, because what a lot of people think is, oh, it would never happen to us. There's no instance in where I would be put in this position. Oh, no, you will.
In under 30 seconds, he just looked at all of us and said, guys, I am transitioning to your team next season. Please refer to me now with she, her pronouns. That was it. There was no further discussion. And at this point, I thought that it was the funniest thing in the entire world. I was laughing because I thought there was no way this could actually be serious. There's no way that this is actually happening right now. But I looked behind me and all my teammates, and they're clapping. They're saying, congrats. We're so proud of you for coming out to us. We're so proud of you for being your authentic self. And I realized very quickly that this was not a practical joke. This was a nightmare. And obviously it ended up being as crazy as I possibly could have imagined. I mean, he went on to become an NCAA champion, all of these different things that happened in the following years. But in that moment, I couldn't wrap my brain around it.
What's crazy to me is that you have the level of cognitive dissonance that you have to engage in to be clapping for your own demise is like crazy. But that is what we are living in, a society where you cannot tell the truth about how you really feel. I know so many women who disagree, and so many coaches, you guys, because I'm in like different coaching cohorts, like fitness coaching cohorts, athletic coaching cohorts, strength training cohorts, track and field training cohorts, and everybody's afraid to say what they think. Nobody agrees with this, but everyone's afraid to say what they think. And so what do? It's like the emperor has no clothes. Everybody's like, and then they go home to their spouses and to their friends and they go, this is messed up, but you can't say anything. You can't say anything. You can't say anything. And she will tell you later in this interview that that's what happens.
It was so unheard of. And I found out that the NCAA does allow it. You just need to take testosterone suppressant for 1 year and you can join any women's team in the country. And that was what the rule was.
That's insane. What year was that?
So this meeting was in 2019. And so it was not until 2 years later that it actually became reality, because we had a gap year because of COVID. Right. So there's no Ivy League sports whatsoever in the 2020 to 2021 season.
Yeah.
And so it was really a slow moving train wreck. I mean, I always, for those 2 years that I knew about it, I thought, surely the NCAA will change their rules. Surely the Ivy League will come in and say enough is enough. Like somebody will do something, or somebody will figure this out. And I remember I would even tell my friends about it on other sports teams or just other students in school. And everyone just said, Paula, you sound crazy. There's no way that's real. And so it really was like a slow moving train wreck to becoming reality, right? I tried for so long to talk about it and everyone just said, there's no way, it's not real.
Yeah. And people were in such denial also. So in addition to being like, so you have one group of people who are like, this is so great. And let me just make sure I say that it's right and say that it's good, because I don't want to be deemed as a transphobe, or I don't want to be deemed. And there's the other people who are like, no, this is not reality. And I have to tell you guys, ashamedly so. I remember when I told you guys at the beginning of this video an hour ago now that I had a parent. I was an athletic director at the time at the middle school level, and a parent came to me and said, hey, there's a male on this opposite team. That was a different time. Another time, it was like 3 or 4 years later, a parent said to me, he said, I'm pulling my girls out of this school because it was a public school. And he said, because they're letting boys compete. And I was like, no, that's no, they're not going to do that. I was living in a false reality too for a while. If you would have told me 5 years ago that this would be like commonplace, I would not have believed you.
At that time, this wasn't really a super popular thing at the time. I imagine it was kind of bizarre, like you said, for you, like total blindside, right?
Yeah, I mean, nowadays, right, you can go on Google and find like 4,000 stories of
Right.
male athletes taking away female opportunities. At this point in time, the only one I'd heard of was actually in my home state of Connecticut. There was a track case. But again, there was very limited details about it. I knew that they were in litigation. It was there wasn't really a lot of lawyers talking about it. There wasn't a lot of media talking about it. Like if you even looked up stories, you couldn't really find them. Even organizations to support female athletes exist back then. There was no, call this number or go on this website if you're experiencing this, which we've done a great job now to set up and make sure that when there are stories and there are girls who want to fight back against this, there's opportunities and resources for them to do so.
Yeah, fascinating. So after it became a reality, after COVID, after the gap year, all that, what was it like sort of behind the scenes, not during competitions? Like, was Leah Thomas changing in the locker rooms with you guys on an all-girls team?
Yes. And so originally when, so after this first meeting, right, there was a lot of people. So everyone was clapping in the room publicly, but privately, a bunch of girls, we'd have one-on-one meetings with each other. We would talk to our coaches.
I told you guys, what did I say? Because everyone is playing this game. I remember watching a video and it was like a TikTok street interview. And this is another time when I realized, oh, people are lying to our faces. They're like, people are pretending. So I was watching this TikTok video. It was like these two girls and some guy goes like, do you think people should be able to transition into like cats or dogs or whatever? And one girl goes, no, I don't think so. The other girl hits her and goes, no, people can do whatever they want. Whatever they want is fine. And I was like, these parents have had conversations with these girls and they have told them, you say whatever you need to say, you do whatever you need to do, and then you go home and this is what we believe. And this is what we are seeing. So we're seeing these people show up to work. We're seeing these people show up online and they're pro this and pro that. And y'all want to know why that man got put into office? Because everybody online and everybody in your face is clapping. We love this. Yes, we love having a man on our team. We love having a biological male on our team. And then they are going home with their very different beliefs because their beliefs are not allowed to be shared. This is why we have what we have going on now. Because people are in your face saying, oh, orange man bad. We hate Elon Musk. And the ballot's going to come back around in 2028. And people are going to just go into their voting, the ballot boxes and just, it's crazy. This was like astonishing to me. I was shocked because she's like, there people were clapping, everyone's clapping. And then we had private conversations and people were like, this is crazy. But they were shunned and silenced by the media. And just because someone is shunned and silent doesn't mean their beliefs have changed. And this is something that we would do well to understand on all racial, gender, religious views. Just because people aren't talking doesn't mean they don't believe them.
All of that and talk about how uncomfortable we were with it. And so originally we were actually told that Thomas was going to be changing in the single stall family locker room outside our locker room. That is originally what we were told was going to happen. But 2 years later, when it eventually became a reality, I remember I was looking at the locker chart. We had a new assistant coach and he reassigned everyone's lockers. And I looked down and I saw that Thomas had a locker like everyone else. And at this point I said, okay, so he's going to be in our locker room and there's nothing we can do about it. And I actually had a teammate. So I was super fortunate. Our locker room is sort of shaped like an L. And
okay. Playing devil's advocate here, the new coach may not have known that Leah Thomas was a trans woman and just put them in with the other girls. So that's very possible. I don't know if that was intentional because sometimes, if a new coach comes on and no one says anything and they're doing locker room assignments, if they don't know that Leah Thomas is a male and they put them in the middle of all the females, then that's kind of just a mistake, not intentional. But yes, this person should have had a separate stall, 500%.
I was at one end and he was at the other. So I was as far away from him as I could have been. But one of my close friends actually wasn't. And she had the locker right next to him. And she went to her coach. And she went to her coach and said, this is a joke, right? There's no way you expect me to undress next to this man. And our coach was just like, I'm sorry, my hands are tied.
And you guys undress out in the open, right? It's not like you hop in a stall. Yeah. And you guys,
yes, and also swimming is one of the sports where you are very exposed changing in and out of your suit. It's not like other sports where you're not soaking wet, right?
Yeah.
But we were changing 18 times a week in the locker room. We have 9 practices a week. You have to change into your suit before practice and change out. That's 18 times you're changing. And that's every week. That's not every single week for the entire year. And so one of that same teammate, my friend who had the locker next to him, she changed out in that family locker room we were originally told he was supposed to change in. And she did it every single practice and everyone knew what she was doing. She would grab her stuff, walk out to the hallway, tiptoe back in. Everyone knew what she was doing. It was just one of those situations where, again, and if people who tried to raise concerns about it, we were called names, we were told we were transphobic, we were told we were homophobic.
Exactly. Exactly. So you're not allowed to defend your right to be a woman. You're not allowed to defend the right to have your own separate space as a woman. You have to advocate for men, biological men, to also be in that space. And I can say that without hating trans people. I can say that as someone who loves. So it's kind of like how you have a BSU, like a Black Student Union. Nothing wrong with having a Black student union. I can have a Black student union and not hate white people. Did you know that? Just like you can have a church that is for Christians and not hate non-Christians. There can be places for solely for certain groups of people, and that doesn't mean that you hate them. It doesn't mean that you hate them. Instead, what we're seeing is a poor. I just feel so much empathy for the teammate who's like, okay, let me just trot my little tail over to this bathroom because I don't want to get dressed in front of someone who a year ago had a girlfriend and is a male. I don't want to do that. And when I signed up for this team, I didn't sign up to have to be doing that.
It was every single aspect of it was just, if you brought up any concerns, you were immediately shut down. You were immediately called names. It was crazy.
And I mean, like, swimming athletes, you guys are wearing bathing suits just like everyone else. There's nothing under them, right? Like, it's not like you've got like a sports bra and underwear under them. Like, you get fully undressed in front of this man in your locker room, and he does the same in front of you guys, right?
Yes. And I think the other thing is like racing suits. So practice suits are pretty easy to get in and out of, but racing suits, I'm not even exaggerating when I say this, they take 20 minutes to change into.
Really? Wow.
Because they're this small. And I'm not even like, they are this tiny. Like, I remember when I first ordered my first racing suit, my mom told me that she thought it could fit an American Girl doll closer than it could fitting me. And that's just like, hopefully you've seen those dolls, you know how big they are. But that is a lot of time you're exposed. And I know, like, even growing up swimming, it's people are helping you. Your friends are like, digging their hands in your suit. You're accidentally flashing people because they're so hard to get the straps on. I mean, it's not a place where you're modest whatsoever. And I played other sports growing up. You're very exposed swimming. Like, the swimming locker room is probably one of the most exposing places you could be. And so I think that's what makes it so crazy. Is like this was a sports team where everyone is so open and changing and exposed and all this stuff. And they're just like, and you should do it with someone on the men's team now. It was just, I mean, I would never want anyone else to.
I can only imagine how uncomfortable that is. And I could also only imagine for someone who does have, and I think about like very conservative, either like sort of like people from other countries, Christians who don't mind this sort of environment as a swimmer on a female team, but like not wanting to expose themselves to a male. And just like, you shut up. Your beliefs don't matter. Your convictions don't matter. You just expose yourself to this man. We don't care. When there are people whose firm beliefs are that no man should see my body naked except my husband. And there's nothing wrong with that belief, but you are forced to engage in this way. It's heartbreaking. And I can say all that and still not hate trans people. Like, do y'all understand that there's so much that you can believe and it doesn't mean that you hate someone.
To experience that. And honestly, even like during it, I suppressed a lot of my emotions and like really how disturbing it actually was.
Yeah. And so here's a question that I didn't.
She said, I had to just, suppress a lot of my emotions. Yeah, a lot of people did. A lot of people had to and still have to suppress their emotions. A couple of years ago, I had a colleague who coached track, and one of his girls, she missed the section qualifiers, the county qualifiers. She made it out of sectionals, was supposed to make counties, and she lost to a trans woman, a student who was a biological male. And he wrote, we have to have on his Instagram, he's like, we have to have a conversation about this. And the kids, he got fired. You guys, he got fired for saying we need to have a conversation about this. Like, that is how deep this runs. This was high school. This wasn't even college. Fired.
Actually have written down. Did you have any kind of indication of like what Leah Thomas's sexuality was? Was this person attracted to men or attracted to women? Like, because that's a whole nother sort of risk factor there. It's like if he likes women, and
he previously dated a member of the women's team.
Oh, that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and and then let me play devil's advocate because you guys know I like to be fair. I don't know that most trans individuals have this life experience. Like, I want to be clear that I think this was a uniquely diabolical situation because he did date a woman. He was like, I am a full-on male who likes women. Because one of the arguments around like why trans people shouldn't be in, bathrooms or whatever is because, oh, what if they're attracted to women? A lot of, like, I just want to keep it a book. I'm just gonna keep it because I know some of you guys are not gonna like that I say this because you're like, no, you're supposed to be anti. A lot of these trans women like men. Okay, they like men. They are not into women. This was a uniquely diabolical situation because he did have a girlfriend. He was attracted to women. So yes, I would be uncomfortable to change in front of you when I know that you are attracted to women. You're getting a free show every 16 times a day, as she said, or a week. Yeah. Disgusting.
Really bad. Okay, and that didn't change to your knowledge when he joined the women's team.
They had broken up by the time he officially joined the team. Right. And she had also graduated. I don't really want to like call him out, but she had also graduated already. So yeah, it just, yes, it was confirmed that he liked women because he was dating a woman. And I think that, again, that's what made it so uncomfortable for a lot of people, is that, this person has clearly had a history of dating women before. And again, that's why they also called it like homophobic, right? Like if we object to changing with him and he's attracted to women, he's actually a lesbian, so we're homophobic. And to the people who bring up that argument all the time, if you don't understand the difference between undressing with another woman that happens to like women versus a man, there's clearly a difference. And a lot of people on the other side kind of like make that argument. And it's like there's a very distinct difference between a man being naked around you versus a woman, regardless of sexuality, right? So,
and
yeah, it is. And I think too, like in the same way, yeah, there's without being too explicit. How do I say this? Yeah, I'm gonna leave that alone. She said everything she needs to say. There's a very big difference. Period.
And at this time, when Leah Thomas is now on your team and changing in your locker room, getting totally naked in your locker room, watching you guys get totally naked, drop my pen. What did Leah Thomas look like? Like, I mean, from photos I've seen, it seems like basically looked like a dude with long hair. I mean, did he seem feminine in any way? Did he just seem like a dude with long hair? What's the?
This is a great question because I'm interested to see the transition.
What's the breakdown on that?
Yeah, I mean, you've seen the pictures. That is exactly that. I mean, even when he announced the transition to us, he was still, so after that meeting we originally had, he was still changing the men's locker room. So he was like, I'm she, her, but in the year of transitioning, when he was still competing for the men, he was still changing the men's locker room, still dressing very masculine. I mean, later on, at graduation, I think he was wearing like a dress and heels. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, I think if you didn't know anything and you saw him walking around campus, you would probably just think that was a member of the men's team.
And this is why I'm curious to know, like, if he was on any dosages, because she mentioned previously that you only have to be on estrogen for a month, right? So if you're on estrogen for a month and then that's it, they don't test you anymore, then you can come off of estrogen for a month or like forever, and you can still, like, your testosterone, because you're a man, your testosterone builds back up. So, and she's explaining that, hey, he kind of didn't really, and this is like this situation with Leah Thomas is very unique because I think with most, if I'm playing devil's advocate again, with most trans women, they completely transition. And outside of like athletics, they completely transition. There's a San Jose State player who is in a very similar situation. San Jose State volleyball player. She's hitting girls. I mean, she's spiking the volleyball and girls are getting concussions because it's so hard, because no matter how much she tries, she's still stronger than the other girls. We'll have to watch that video another day. But this is a very unique situation because it doesn't look like he transitioned very much. And so he very much had a lot of the male traits and a lot of the male characteristics, athletically, physiologically, biologically, lung capacity, which is huge for swimming, just light years ahead of women in terms of biology. And yet everyone's supposed to say, hey, this is a woman.
And so, and again, like that's the other thing is it's just so interesting. It's again, like you can just grow your hair out, and that is now the standard for saying, and you're welcome in all women's spaces and teams and all these opportunities. And that is basically what we were told. Like, this is how we identify, deal with it.
Wow. And so you touched on this a little bit, like what was the atmosphere especially as time went on, like with the team? I mean, do you feel that the majority of people supported Leah Thomas? The majority of people were over it. Maybe they supported Leah Thomas, but also didn't want to do changing in their locker room. What was that like?
Yeah, so at the beginning of when it first started happening, I think it was a lot of unknowns. It was right, like we had taken so much time off from swimming because of COVID. It was unclear how fast he was even going to swim, all these different variables and factors. But you could have one-on-one conversations with pretty much everyone on the team, and people would say, this is unfair. I mean, I had teammates who were crying because they lost their relay spot to him, or...
Yep. And nobody cares. Nobody cares that these girls, like, okay, so with swimming and with any, honestly, so you guys know I work with, again, a lot of the athletes that I work with go D1. Okay. They go D1 in their sport. These girls spend hours and hours and hours of their lives on weekends at games and meets and matches, in the weight room, doing training, just camp after camp after camp, all for a man on the other team to go, bloop, my turn. Heartbreaking. It completely undermines all of the hard work that these women, these young girls put in to being an athlete.
They were bumped off the roster because he was chosen to go to these meets. And I experienced all of that. But interestingly, it was pretty open. Like, you could go up to pretty much anyone on the team. I would say at least 85% of the girls on the team, and they would agree to some extent, whether it was the athletic part or the locker room part, that it was incredibly unfair. But as time went on, the administration wanted to make sure that they had the situation under control. So once the media started to get attention of him, so eventually, right, he ended up winning a race by over 30 seconds. And if you know anything about swimming, races are won to the millisecond. So 32 seconds is crazy.
Insane. That's like Usain Bolt racing one of my high schoolers. Let me explain this to you guys in track and field terms. Usain Bolt runs the 100 meters in, I believe, 9.6. Okay. The fastest high school guy is a 9.9 right now. Okay. The average high school guy is around 10.4, 10.3. Okay. That's a 1. That is like, that is crazy. 30 seconds is insane. Let me just crossing the finish line. Let's go 30 seconds. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000, 6, 1,000, 7, 1,000, 8, 1,000, 9, 1,000. Like, that's how long we're waiting. Insanity.
To win by. And so the media figured out that this person had never existed before and had been William on the men's team for 3 years prior. And the school at this point realized they had to come in and do damage control. So we had a mandatory team meeting, and they told Leah not to come to this meeting. They said, this meeting is mandatory for everyone on the women's team except for Leah.
Wow.
And they bring us this panel of people. There were at least 12 people there from what I counted. And it was administrators. It was people from the LGBT center. It was like conflict resolution managers, like random administrators from the university that shouldn't have jobs, but they do because it's a bureaucracy college. And they sat us down and they literally just said, this is a non-negotiable. Leah will be on this team, whether you like it or not. You might as well stay quiet. They told us we would never be able to find a job if we spoke out against it.
This is exactly. And they're doing this in real life. Like, when I tell you guys, my colleague who spoke up for his athlete was like, hey, you guys, we need to have a conversation about this, because she worked her butt off this season and she got derailed, pulled out of a meet because a biological male beat her. Let's talk about this. And they said, no. Fired. And they're not lying when they say you'll never be able to find a job. These people are very powerful, especially at Ivy League schools, the ivory tower. They are very, very powerful. They control a lot of things. They will make sure that you do not have a job if you do not fit their agenda. It doesn't matter. They are pro-woman until this. And then you have to subvert your own power as a woman and kowtow to this, which is insanity. Insanity.
They said we will regret it. They told us that this is the next civil rights movement and you'll be tainted the same way people who didn't want to share bathrooms with people of color.
And this is so diabolical too, y'all. You guys know I hate this, because being LGBTQ is nothing like being Black. Can we explain that again? Let me explain this to you one more time for the idiots in the back. When I come out of the womb, my skin is Black. My hair is kinky coily. And people can discriminate. People do discriminate based on the history of this country, solely based on that. When you come out of the womb, you look like a normal, average, not that Black isn't normal, but you look like an average baby. Nobody knows that you're in the LGBTQ community, and nobody could ever know unless you share it. We are not the same. This country does not have a history that your people built, literally, physically tilled the ground for this country to be built. We are not the same. Your people do not have the reputation of being lazy, ghetto, loud, stupid criminals. We are not the same. Unless you open your mouth to say something, nobody would ever know. But people can just look at the color of my skin and make an assumption. We are not the same. And this is gaslighting manipulation at its finest.
We're back.
What?
Yeah, it was. They kept on making this comparison of like segregation.
No way.
And they kept on just, again, you will regret it. Nothing you can do about it. You'll lose that job. They'll search you up online and see that you're a hateful bigot, and you'll never be able to get hired.
It turns out that's true. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean,
He's not joking. It is true. Yeah, turns out that's true.
well, funny enough, I mean, quick sidebar. I mean, I worked the corporate job I was supposed to after graduating, and
Good.
I spoke out about this, and I did not lose my job over my opinions. I know some people probably do and have, but I didn't. And so that was an empty threat. But anyway, in this conversation, they, kept on saying all this stuff. And at the very end, they said, if you still object to everything that we have told you, please seek psychological services. And here's the number for a therapist.
Wow.
See, the problem is you are unwell. You are not smart. And this is why I finally decided to say something about this, because I'm like, I am a very sane, rational, fully functional, somewhat intelligent adult with a vast life experience in a wide variety of topics, subjects, experiences. This is insanity. I am not the crazy one. I am not crazy for thinking that perhaps we should just keep biological women in their own square and biological men in their own square as it comes to sports and just let it be.
Wow.
And after this meeting, you couldn't have those one-on-one conversations anymore. A lot of teammates, again, I had classes with, I was friends with, they would not speak about it. They would say, I'm not talking about
They were afraid.
it. Exactly. And I had friends who swam for other Ivy League schools, and I reached out to a lot of them. And one of my closest friends from childhood who I swam with went to a different Ivy League school. And I texted her to ask, how's your school handling it? Like, what do you think? And she texted me back, do not talk to me. I'm not allowed to speak about this.
Whoa.
And so it wasn't even my school. And then I later found out the girls at Harvard were sent a letter in writing that said, if you spoke out against this, you would contribute to someone committing suicide. In writing.
Oh,
They were
my
told
God.
that.
Is that letter out there? Like, can you find it?
Yeah, I can probably send it to you after.
please.
But we have Riley's put it on Twitter. There's a girl at Harvard who has been in contact with both of us. And obviously on our side on this issue, shared the letter.
Did a lot of that stuff change after school? Like after you guys all graduated and stuff? Is it like?
Well, interestingly, I mean, my team is almost 40 girls. Only 3 of my teammates have reached out to me saying that they support my stance. And I certainly had more than 3 girls I was having conversations with before.
Yeah, people are you're shunning people and trying to silence them. And it's like, so the question is like, is that really the kind of environment that you want? Like, again, people are like, why did so-and-so get voted into office? Because this is the sentiment. This is the atmosphere around conversations and topics. You tell people they're stupid. You tell people they're never going to have a job again. You tell people they can't speak up. So what do? They lie to your face. They pretend like they agree with you. And then they turn around and they vote for who they want to vote for.
For that team meeting when they really shut us all down.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it was just, again, like thinking about how much you go to college to find a job, right? I mean, that's the point. I like, there's really why else would you spend thousands of dollars on an education, right? You'd like want to get a job. And if you think for some reason that's going to be put into jeopardy because you speak up over something like this, I mean, for most people, that's not worth it.
Yeah.
I wish that weren't the case, but it's just reality. And I think a lot of people also don't necessarily have like the stomach for this type of stuff. I mean, I've received a lot of hate for speaking out about this. And I think and people are aware of that. I mean, they saw how much name calling there was even like amongst other people on the team that disagreed with each other. Like imagine that just like super large scale. I think a lot of people just aren't ready to put themselves into that situation.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of people agree that, there's got to be some rules and regulations around this. Most people, I'm here to tell you that my opinion on this is not the minority. My opinion is actually the majority. But what is allowed to be shared and what is allowed to be acceptable is the minority opinion. Most people think, you know what? This is probably not a good idea. Like, this is probably not the best idea. I can see how this is problematic. But when you have Ivy League, the media, powerful organizations getting up and saying, hey, if you speak out against this, we will make sure you never have a job. These are college kids and they're fearful of their livelihoods. They're going to say, you know what? I surrender. Sure. Yes. I think men should be on women's sports teams, and there's nothing wrong with it. That's strange. And I think it's also weird too, to me. And I think I've said this in a different way before, that I would never, I like people being who they are. I like my wolves in wolves' clothing. You are creating wolves in sheep's clothing, and I don't even want to call them wolves because I actually agree with them. But you're mad because you thought, hey, I thought this person was, no, you created an environment where they weren't allowed to share the truth. And then you get mad that they vote a different way than you do on these topics because you created wolves in sheep's clothing. That's what this sort of rhetoric, this sort of the silencing does, is it creates wolves in sheep's clothing. I like my wolves in wolves' clothing. I want to know, if you're racist, honey, tell me, because then I know how to navigate. I know how to act around you. I know how to deal with you appropriately. Child, don't lie to my face. Don't BLM me to death. And then then I find out I don't know. A lot of people like platitudes, and they like they like all of this pomp and circumstance and pageantry around it. And they don't care if behind closed doors you're voting against their every single. I'm not like that. So to me, fostering environments where there's open conversation makes the most sense.
Speaking of which, you guys got to go follow Paula on all of her socials, TikTok, Instagram. Where else are you, Paula?
Yeah, mostly just Twitter. I feel like Twitter's like the big one. Thank you, Elon. Honestly, though, that is something I will say. Twitter has really been huge for this issue in particular. Like, we've been able to talk about news stories that have been suppressed for so long. And so, yeah, be thankful we have that outlet.
Definitely. Yeah, Twitter's amazing. That's where I've been pretty, active. A lot of the people watching right now are on Twitter. So did Leah know that there were girls on the team who sort of didn't like that she was on the team, or didn't like certain parts of her being on the team, or him being on the team?
Yeah, I mean, there's interviews. There's like an ABC interview, and like in the interview, Leah was basically just saying like, and those people who object to me, like, that's their problem. I'm happy now.
Oh wow.
And that was always the conversation. And to me, that's upsetting, because I don't agree with the other side on this, but at least I can understand where you might be coming from. Or I can understand, like, maybe you do actually believe that you're a woman and think you're entitled to all this stuff, and I'm willing to hear you out. But from the opposing side on this issue, like, there wasn't really a lot of like hearing out us being uncomfortable in the locker room, or hearing out that we didn't think that it was fair that he was winning all of these events by seconds, or bumping somebody off the roster or the relay or whatever it might be. There was just no room for that. It was, if you even bring up that concern in any way, shape, or form, no matter how mild, you're still the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the point, is that there really isn't a dialogue. And when my colleague was fired, I was like, oh, they're really not trying to solve this. They're actually not trying to solve this issue of trans women belong in women's sports. They're not really trying to solve this. They just want you to shut up and listen. And I said, we got to talk about this. And I said, and in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, if we had to compromise, which I'm really not into, if we had to compromise, I would say you gotta have like transitioned when you were like 5, which I'm not for that. Like, I don't think that's healthy for children to make these sort of decisions when they're young. Or I guess you wait until you get to puberty, or you get past puberty. Like, I'm not really sure. So we would need to talk about, okay, well, how is there a different league that we can put them in? Like, how do we make this like where you're not completely banned from sports, but you're not also encroaching on the success of biological females? Do you see what I'm saying? So like, there's, like, I'm over here trying to make sense, but you can't talk about this even. All right, you guys, I gotta go. I know this was a super long video. Thank you guys for watching. It was kind of all over the place, but whatever. You guys can agree or disagree. You remember, you can disagree. You just can't do so disrespectfully. And remember, you can disagree with what someone is doing and not hate them. Please do not be a stupid person. Please do not become one of these stupid people who lacks critical thinking, who lacks the ability to hold nuance, who lacks the ability to hold tension, who lacks the ability to hold multiple views at one time. I can both appreciate and love women and believe that women deserve to have their own spaces, and not hate trans women. Did you know that? I can both think that it is imperative that young girls and women have their separate sport entities and not hate trans women. I can do that. That is actually very, very healthy. It is unhealthy when you think, and I think, that you have to think exactly how I do, and I have to think exactly as you do, or we are just completely different people and just completely, no. The way that we solve these kinds of issues is actually listening. If you want to create an environment where people are silenced and they just smile in your face and give you platitudes, oh, so great, you're so great, and then vote with their pen very differently, and then you're mad, keep doing what you're doing. Keep telling people, silencing people and calling them transphobes and calling them all these things. Keep doing that. That's the environment that we've created. All right, you guys, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.